Berlinda's story. Content warning: childhood sex abuse. My story shows how a person can go from real hardship to a life of balance using community, prayer, the Four Noble Truths, and the Eightfold Path. Trauma made me want to numb myself with substances, and my practice has allowed me to feel those feelings from the past without reaching out to something to harm myself further. My childhood was pretty rough. I was raised by a woman who was a sex worker, and when I turned 11 years old, she started to traffic me as well. I learned to leave my body and disassociate because that was the only way I could deal with it. I lived that way for a long time. My mother didn't allow us to play with other children of color. We would get beatings for that even though she was dark, a morena herself. Eventually, I was placed in a children's mental institution because I stopped talking. I was there for a couple years before they sent me back to my mother. When I got home, one of my abusers was visiting my mother, so I ran away the first day I came back. As soon as I saw him at the top of the steps, I took off. There was a local delivery boy who I liked, and he let me hang out at his apartment while he was working. I told him I didn't want to go back home and about what was going on there. He told me that when he came back from work, he would have something for me, and that ended up being a bottle. I took that first drink, and it felt like, my God, where have you been? Everything disappeared from my mind. I just wanted to have fun. I was giggly for the first time in a very long time. I had stopped going to school during the 3rd grade. There were no social services at the time, at least for my neighborhood. You didn't see them unless the school complained. I was in and out of juvenile detention, and one female lawyer told me I was inappropriately dressed for court and gave me her own stockings to wear for the proceedings. I wanted to stay with her because she was nice to me. At 15, I was emancipated from my mother and began working at a bar. This older lady I met on the bus asked me if I wanted to work. I thought it was going to be cleaning houses or something, but when I asked her what she wanted me to do, she told me about the bar. The first day I went in for the interview, I had never been inside a bar before, and they were putting all these shot glasses in front of me, and I asked the lady, Miss Mary, what the shot glasses were for. She told me eagerly that men were buying me drinks. Since I didn't like the taste of alcohol, she taught me how to make a lemon drop chaser with a slice of lemon covered in sugar. I got hooked on those. I drank for the sensation. I got myself ready for drinks. It was a treat. This was in 1970 at the Golden Slipper on Webster Avenue in the Bronx. Eventually, I found out the go-go dancers at the bar made a lot more money than I did, so I started doing that. I liked it because I didn't actually have to get involved with the men. It was all an illusion. I go dance for 9 years and made a lot of money. I worked long hours at different places around the city, and I drank through all of it. I didn't know that I had crossed that invisible line of addiction. I would isolate and drink. I didn't want to share my drink. I would get territorial with my alcohol. I would keep cups of alcohol around my apartment in different rooms. One in the bathroom next to the toothbrush. One next to the bed, which I would reach for as soon as I woke up in the morning. I gave birth to my daughter when I was almost 18. My mother took her because it was either sign her over to my mother or release her to the system. I didn't raise her myself because I couldn't stay with my mother, and I thought that at least I could still see her if she's with family. I met my husband in the neighborhood. We went to a party together and he came home with me and never left. When I met him, he was sniffing heroin and drinking, but I made him stop the heroin. He said if I stopped dancing, he would marry me the next year. We had a son, and when he was 3, my husband wanted us to move to Virginia because his family was down there. We both got jobs. He did maintenance. I cleaned houses. He started getting abusive to the point where I would check into a psych ward for the weekend just to get away from him for a while. I applied for a job at the Department of Corrections, DOC, and he hid the acceptance letter from me under the mattress. He didn't want me making more money because he wouldn't have as much control over me. In May 1990, I received my first paycheck from the DOC and I got my own apartment. I put up bunk beds and gave my son the bedroom while I slept out in the living room on a daybed. During my 2nd or 3rd year at the DOC, I went to a party with fellow officer, and they had a lot of coke. So me and another girl went into the kitchen and started cooking it. At the time, it was called freebasing. Before I left the party that night, I was addicted. I ultimately stopped using crack because of my son. I went to my major and told her I had a problem, and they sent me to rehab. I was sober for a long time until I met Keena working a temp job at Great Adventure. We figured out a scam where we could pocket ticket money directly, and one day, we made $1,500 each. Kina wanted to score drugs with the money, and I told her I would have just a little bit, but we were up all night long. That's when it started up again. We moved up to New Jersey together with my son because he had gotten kicked out of high school in Virginia. He didn't want me to be with Kina, and so he moved out, which hurt me. He felt like I picked her over him, but I felt like my personal relationships were none of his business. I started having feelings for women when I started dancing, but I didn't take it seriously until later. My son knew that I was gay. I had met another woman previously and we were married. It's not like it is today, so we had what was called a holy union. The ceremony took place at a gay church, and the pastor asked us what colors we were using in our wedding, and we told him purple and silver. He wore purple and silver vestments for our ceremony. She was always good to me. Even after we broke up, she helped me raise my son, and they're still in touch to this day. She helped me pay rent and got me a new truck, but all that stopped once Kina came into my life. Kina and I would argue over who did more of the drugs. I tried to solve our problems by moving, but as soon as we set foot in our new town, she was out looking for drugs again. I found a job working for an elderly lady, and she had 2 large pickle jars full of quarters at her home, and Kina went in there and stole all that lady's money. And of course, I got fired. One day when Kina didn't come home, I called Catholic Charities and they put me in a hotel and got me a ticket out of there. Something told me to not look back or say goodbye or nothing. I was so concerned with getting away from her, I didn't notice the days and months of sobriety stacking up. Eventually, I came back to New York and started hanging out with the wrong people and picked up crack again. It was something familiar. I lost my apartment and found myself living in an abandoned building with a bunch of other drug users. I moved to a shelter, which is where I attended my first 12-step meeting. I went to so many meetings that the facilitator told me I was ready for a meeting outside the shelter. It was on Broadway between 106th and 107th Street. That became my home group, and the shelter found me an apartment and I moved back to the Bronx. 12 steps showed me that I was my own worst enemy and that the only reason I am where I am today is for the grace of God. He was my rehab, for real. He keeps it simple for me. It still felt like I needed something else, like something was missing. I was surfing the net one day during the height of the 2020 pandemic, and I found Recovery Dharma and went to an online meeting. The spirituality of it was very attractive to me. Even though I was new to this type of fellowship, when people spoke, I really identified with what they were saying. I asked about a sponsor, or in this case, a mentor, and they hooked me up with another woman who was also living in the Bronx. I feel safe to tell my whole story in RD, because its consideration of people's trauma is part of the practice. I've gone to quite a few different RD meetings, and they all have had the same calm energy. I think of it as Buddha energy. There can be tears in meetings, and there's no shame. RD is a safe space, and I needed that type of energy in my life. 12 steps was the opening, but now there are different and deeper dimensions of recovery, and RD did that for me. One thing our practice has helped me with is my reactivity. Because of my daily meditation practice and the teachings of the 4 Noble Truths and Eightfold Path, I can take a pause before reacting to something that makes me angry. I am still a work in progress, but I know that I'm not in the street anymore and I don't have to protect myself like that. The wise one says to listen and be still. I know I'm getting better because someone said something unwise to me the other day, and I didn't say anything. I just gave them a look over my glasses. Recovery Dharma has helped me have compassion for myself and others. This has helped me receive love and care from other people, something I haven't been used to. While I don't live the 4 Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path perfectly, I strive to. I pray for that. I meditate every morning with a wise friend, and lately I've been using healing meditations because I have chronic pain and it's been helpful. Please don't let me leave you with the impression that this practice is easy, because it's not. I used to avoid feeling and now I feel everything. I've learned that when stuff comes up, I just let it play out. Sometimes you need to just let the record play. I have a record that was chiseled into my body, and there's nothing I can do about that, but I try and catch the feelings so I can identify if they're from past or present, if it's guilt or shame. When my past pain haunts me, I stop and breathe slowly and chant my favorite mantra. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Soha.